Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 29 of the Masters Muscle Podcast. We are now for what I'll call season two. Vinny is back. And our guest tonight, he competed in what I consider one of the best decades of bodybuilding, battling it out against the likes of Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, Ronnie Coleman. He is your 1995 Nationals overall winner. Vinny, who's the guest of honor?
Don Long, man. Wow, it has been a long time.
Yeah.
Don and I go back a long time. And no pun intended. I remember. I think we met somewhere in maybe the '94 Nationals. I took fifth as a middleweight. I believe you took third, and then following year, you won the overall. And we always had an opportunity to cross paths with certain in work endeavors that we were involved in, clothing lines, guest posings, seminars, and things like that. And I remember always picking your brain. And I used to say this to my friends, like every time I saw Don, I would pick his brain. I think I annoyed the hell out of him back in the day. And you had a great career. Your first show you did, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you took top 3 in the Night of the Champions when it was in Beacon Theater.
Correct.
When bodybuilding was like probably at its peak with the excitement. And we both competed in a very difficult era.
Yeah.
And you as a heavyweight went against some monsters, and then when you got to the pros, it was no different. And I'm gonna let you take it from there. So after the 96 Night of Champions, I'm looking here, you did the Arnold Night of Champions again in San Jose. Take it from here. How did you tell us about your career?
Yeah, of course, leading up to the Nationals, of course, I started off as a light heavyweight at the juniors. And that was in 1992. Yeah, 1992. The next year I was able to move up to the heavyweight, and I put on about 30 pounds a year. And so I went to the heavyweight division, of course it was only heavies at that point as far as the maximum. But I went to the heavyweight division at that point. Like I said, picked up 30, and I placed in the top 4, with Francois, Dennis, and Edgar Fletcher, and myself. And then I think Caputo was behind me, and Tony Freeman was behind him. So he was 6th that year. And then
that was a class.
Go ahead.
That was a stacked class.
That was a stacked class, yeah. So because even deep behind that, it was always somebody else that could have moved up into the 6th or 5th place spot easily. So. So then after 93 Nationals, I picked up another good amount of weight, probably about 17 pounds, and I was about 241 at the 94 Nationals with Paul DeMayo and Craig Titus, along with Edgar Fletcher. Tony Freeman was in that show also, and then Stan McCrary, So still a lot of good people in that particular show also, And then, of course, 95 was the year that I put on like another 5 or 6 pounds that year, but a little more refined. And then that's when I actually won the overall. So, and then, of course, after that, that was around October, and I had up until May to try to make some type of improvements for the Night of Champions. And so I probably put on another 5 pounds. And then I went into the Night of Champions where I got 3rd behind Flex and Ronnie, And so that's kind of like my claim to fame, because after that, not knowing is probably when my body started getting sick. I didn't realize what was going on. But in hindsight, I was only born with the 1 kidney. And then in turn, that kind of had me, I look great in the off season and I look good in photos, but I never could produce it well enough at the shows.
So you didn't know you were born with 1 kidney?
No, when you're our age, back then they didn't see things like that. Nowadays, I have a niece, they saw it when she was in the womb that she has 1 kidney, So back then, they didn't have that kind of technology to say, you had 1 kidney. A lot of people walk around with 1 and don't even know it, but you can live great on 1, but you just can't be, a high level bodybuilder. Probably.
Right. So you had to make a drastic decision to say, I think I have to end my career.
Well, it's just, because you've seen I did the rest of the different shows year after year. That was 96, 97, 98, 99. I kept trying to compete, but nothing was actually working. Off seasons were great. You know, I got up to 310 pounds. You know, I was huge, and ready to come in at about 270, 275. But it just never would land right. You know, even though once again, I can have photo shoots from that same prep. And sometimes that's what people see on my page. I look great, but it's a fine line to being, you know, looking great on stage. You know, it's all it takes a little bit to throw you off. You know.
Sure, big difference, big difference.
Yeah.
And was that definitely, like, did that play on your psyche and, you know, make you think like, well, what am I doing next? Because this is my career.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind, at this point, I still didn't know what was going on, and not until I got sick. I was about 2 weeks where I had like the flu, and I explained the story before, but it was like 2 weeks I had like the flu, and I never really got sick like that because I really took really good care of myself, and of course I ate well. You know, I just never caught hardly even colds. But anyway, this time it was like 2 weeks, and I just couldn't kick it. So finally, I went to the doctor, and by this time I'm kind of throwing up and stuff. He said, you know, you need to go to the emergency room. By the time I got there, that's literally they said you need to go on dialysis.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
at this point, I don't even know what dialysis is, honestly, you know. And so I was definitely in big time denial. I'm like, you know, this is around October, and then, you know, I'm already kind of starting to prep for the Arnold's Classics, you know, looking good as far as being in the off season and stuff like that. And then so I was just in denial. And finally, after about 3 days, they called my sister and got her on the phone and said, you know, you need to talk to your brother, you know. And then and so she got me to actually go on dialysis, you know. So.
And Don, you're what, your 20s, give or take?
That was probably well at this point I'm about 33.
Okay.
Not champions. I was still in my 20s, but this is 3 or 4 years later. You know.
Gotcha.
How long were you on dialysis?
I started when I was 33.
You're still currently on dialysis?
Oh no, I have a kidney transplant now that I've had for probably the past 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don, talk to us about your road to bodybuilding. I mean, were you an athlete growing up? Were you an average kid? What was that like?
Yeah, I was an athlete. You know, I played all the different sports. I wouldn't say, you know, I was good at all, but I don't think I applied myself enough to be great at all of them. But of course, I know all sports. I played all sports from wrestling to baseball to football, you name it. I was always on the teams, you know.
Okay.
And so I was good. I was an athletic guy. Just never really took anything serious as far as knowing that you got to put in this kind of work if you want to be great at it. I just went to practice, came home, lived day by day, and then went back to practice again. Not like investing. Okay, I want to be a great football player. I want to be a great team, you know. And it went to bodybuilding that I learned, you know, that you got to put that kind of work into it. But yeah, I was a good athlete, you know, at all the sports, you know. And then, but I was small. I was only 155 pounds when I graduated high school, you know.
Okay.
And then by the time I was grown, you know, it was 22 is when I started actually training with the weights. I was about 170 pounds. Yeah.
So was it basically just wanted to put on weight, saw a magazine cover and said, I want to do that? Or kind of what was the real origins?
Yeah. So I used to do these, you know, best body on the beach contests. And you know, this had nothing really to do with bodybuilding. It was just kind of like a sexy body, so to speak, you know, so because I was already into the dance life, the stripping life. So you see, you meet people that do these different contests. So I made literally almost a living doing that, because in the DC area where I live, it was a different club every night that was holding some type of best chest contest or best body on the beach. So I'll just do a circuit, you know, and then win trips, win money in the whole 9 yards. But in turn, what I would do is eventually I ran into actually people that actually competed in bodybuilding. So they say, you know, you should think about bodybuilding. Even though I still didn't have like big legs, I just had a nice cut physique, you know.
Yep.
And then they said you should check out a bodybuilding show. So I checked out one. I said, I think I can try to kind of do this. And at the time, I kind of saw myself kind of like a Sean Ray, even though I didn't realize how short he was. But I saw myself in that same shape, so to speak, you know.
Yep.
And then of course I saw Lee Haney and stuff like that. So I said, I think I can do this if I put the work in. So once I did my first show, I competed the first couple of years natural. And then you know, I said, well, I did well. I placed second in my first show, and never out of the top 5 in any of the shows I did in the first, you know, year or two. And then finally I said, okay, I'm gonna invest everything into it, time and everything, study. And then that's when I, you know, kind of took it to another level, you know.
At the time, were you training in the same gym as King Kamali?
No, he was in a different gym because of course he came up behind me a little bit. He's young. He was younger than I was, but he started off young too, though. So even though I might have been, let's say, when we probably met, I was probably 25 or something, 26 or whatever, 25, 24, 25. He was probably 16 years old, you know.
Oh,
But he was competing as a teenager, you know. And so we knew each other, but he trained at a different gym. I trained at a Gold's gym. He trained at a World's gym.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was some. I thought you guys lived close together.
Well, we live real close. I mean, it was in the same city for sure. It's just he chose to train at that particular gym. You know, I didn't do a lot of gym hopping, and so I stayed at my home gym, you know, and then and so we saw each other all the time at the shows and stuff like that, you know.
Cool. So, you have your kidney transplant, and what's next?
Well, I had a first kidney transplant in 2002. And that's
okay.
because I was on dialysis probably for about so from 99 to 2002, I was on dialysis. And then they had a program where if someone, this was a new thing at the time where, you know, because no one in my family was actually a match, you know. And of course, honestly, I was getting letters from all kinds of people. Really, I was, you know, this was before emails and stuff like that, but I was getting all kinds of letters and donations and people, literally a guy flew down and we're still friends to this day. He tested and everything to try to get donated, you know, try to donate, but he wasn't a match, you know, and so several people offered like that. But anyway, so my sister wasn't a match either. No one in my family was, but they had a program starting where if someone in your family wants to donate, and that's kind of common now, but back then it was kind of new. If someone wants to donate, they can donate to the list. And then if they donate to the list, then that'll move you to the top of the list instead of waiting 3, 4, 5 years.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So she did that. And I received the kidney about a month later. But once again, it's a cadaver. It's different than getting a kidney from a living person. It's the chance of survival of the kidney is a lot shorter than a living kidney. You know, but anyway, it lasted a year and a half. And then so I had to go back on dialysis. But it was a very traumatic experience. So I didn't really even want anyone else to give up a kidney at this point. I was like 7, 8 years after that to where I said I was just going to ride it out, you know. But then we moved to Jacksonville, Florida, where there's a Mayo Clinic there. And at the time, I met my wife in Missouri. She moved with us. And then after being married probably 2 or 3 years, she said, you should at least get on the list, you know. And then, you know, by the time you get up there, maybe technology gets better. They can make kidneys last longer, blah, blah, blah. And long story short, she went with me for the whole talk up at the clinic and stuff like that. And they explained to her once again how living kidneys last a lot longer, you know. And then so by the time we got home, she went and tested her blood because you can test your blood on your own to see what blood type you are. And she found out we were the same blood type. But of course,
wow,
yeah, of course that really don't make a difference though, because it really comes down to androgens. And so you can have the same blood type, but you have to match on a lot of like 3 different androgen levels. And by this time, I had already had transfusions and things like that. So. And I had the transplant before, so it lowers your percentage of who will be available. So it was only 3% of the population that would be a match for me. And so she came on with the test, you know, and said, well, I'm an O positive, so now, you know, let's try to go the next step. So anyway, she wanted to move forward with that. So we called Mayo Clinic up. They put her through all the testing. And I think we have to wait like a month after that for them to do all the testing. And then, and also we get a call and said she's a perfect match, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so we didn't know where that came from, but so she's definitely an angel. And then so that was in 2010, and so ever since I've had that kidney, you know.
So you found your mate literally and figuratively.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, did you compete while you had a kidney transplant?
Not while I had a transplant. I competed while I was on dialysis. A lot of times people did confuse that, but I said I would never take a risk with someone that gave me a kidney and start doing bodybuilding again, you know. And so no, I didn't never compete with a transplant, put it that way.
Okay.
But on dialysis, you don't have nothing to lose. You don't have a kidney to lose, you know. So, and plus I had to go through all kinds of, you know, I don't know if you remember with the IFBB, made me go through all kinds of loopholes just to even get back on stage, you know. So
no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So Don, when you're trying to compete now later on, is there anybody you can soundboard that maybe had similar issues, or are you just kind of experimenting, reading, trying to figure out what might work for you?
Yeah, I was at, because keep in mind, a lot of people since then wrote me because my story is out there, and a lot
Yeah.
of times people pull up transplant and weightlifting. My name for some reason pulls up like that, and so I've, girls, guys, you name it. I've been written by thousands of people over the past 10 years or whatever, or 20 years.
I can imagine.
But yeah, so granted, I always had knowledge with my own body, so I knew how, I knew nutrition, I knew training, I knew everything. So, and I just had to make adjustments based on dialysis. Dialysis is tricky, but even though dialysis, when you do dialysis, and I started doing home treatments, so you do it at night, at home on your own, and so therefore I could get on the machine and get off, but it really dries you out really well. It dehydrates you, so to speak. So, and I just had to time it to where that would be like the morning of a show, for example. And that was later. That was around 2009, my last year competing. But 2006, 7, and 8, I had to go to a center, and then so I would have to do say shows on Saturday, then I'll go to the treatment on Friday, but so you end up retaining a little bit more water between then and Saturday.
Yep.
But the last time I competed, it dries you out pretty good. So
Because I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
You just have to learn how to, manipulate the whole process, according to, and kind of mix it with bodybuilding, so to speak,
Because I think Flex had a kidney replacement in the late teens as well. I might be wrong, but I think he did also. Flex Wheeler?
Yeah, I think he had it in 2002, his first.
Oh, that early. Okay.
Yeah, 2000. Yes, yeah, that's around the time he got a transplant. Yeah.
Interesting. So let's go back to when you're competing. Okay, like what was your training like? What was your nutrition like?
My career.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You saying like during my bodybuilding career?
Yeah, during your career, like what was your nutrition like? What was your training like?
Yeah, of course. Early on, it was a lot of trial and error, just reading and learning. And I used to train. Honestly, when I first started training, I would train 3 or 4 body parts a day and just go in there and I'm natural also, and so I'm just like training like an animal. We might have all done something like that, but anyway. And I'm thinking, but I wasn't growing. I was still getting cut, and I feel like I could do it. My body. I was younger, of course, so I feel like I can do anything almost. So I didn't have no problem doing the work. It's just I wasn't producing either. So then I started reading to where too much is too much. And so later on, I started backing it up to where I would train. I went to training body parts twice per week. And so I would have a thing where Monday would be chest, bis, and tris. Tuesday would be quads and hams. And then Wednesday would be back and shoulders. And then I would repeat that. And then I would take Sundays off. And then once again, as the years went on, I might have did that maybe for my first juniors and maybe for nationals. I can't remember, but shortly after that, I decided, okay, I'm gonna slow it up some even more to be able to put on even more weight. So I started doing 1 body part per day, and then and that's when I started making the most gains. And of course, at the same time, when you hear me talking about touch-up training, that's why I actually brought in touch-up training to bring up weak areas. So I would train. Like, for example, and how it really came about, like I said, I talked on the video before where I used to do arms every single day, and that helped me bring up just arms. This was before the gym or anything. Just to go to the beach, I would train arms every day, and I had big biceps, But so I started doing some, analyzing, if you take a look at a construction worker, and it's because I did construction myself. I was more like a punch out guy, labor type guy. But there's real guys who hammer every single day. If you notice, the one arm is going to be way bigger than the other arm because they literally hammering every day. The same thing with a tennis player, same thing with a guy that rides bikes, cycling. That's all they do is ride every day. They got huge quads and small upper bodies, And so then I started saying, well, I'm not going to do that much. I'm just going to do a touch up on each area and let it break down, like I mentioned before, break down lightly so it can heal pretty fast. And then the repetitiously of breaking down and healing creates solid muscle underneath it over time. And so after my first nationals, Jim Mannion told me, you look great, but you got to bring up your back, And so the first thing I started doing was back touch-ups, And if you go and look from one year to the next, I made a lot of improvements on my back. So then I started literally doing it for, quads, hams, shoulders. Shoulders weren't a weakness of mine, but I just wanted great shoulders,
So when you would train back, did you have like say a back day, and then every day after that was an exercise you picked?
Exactly. So let's say back is my weakness at this time. And so I would train all my body parts, like I told you. Monday would be chest, Tuesday would be quads, Wednesday would be biceps and tries, Thursday would be shoulders, Friday would be hamstrings, because I separated those two because, you know, I wanted to make the same gains on my hams as I did the quads. So I separated those two. And then Friday would be back. So every day but back day, I would do some type of back movement at the end of my workout, 4 to 5 sets. Heavy, heavy,
So,
heavy, heavy, heavy.
So
and then,
did you say, okay, was it like, okay, I have this certain area of my back I have to bring up, or it was, I'm just going to pick an exercise arbitrarily? Like,
yeah, so I would go back and forth. Some for a week or two or whatever the case may be. I'm doing nothing but hammer strength rows. Okay, the next couple of weeks I'm going to do lat pull downs. You know, I'm going to
every
do
day,
pull ups every day, just 4 to 5 steps. Huh?
The same exercise.
Well, it can be any exercise, because once again, I will fumble around because you got all kinds of machines that hit from different angles. But as long as I'm doing something for my back to improve it, I'm gonna say I want to bring this area. I want to hit lower back today. I want to hit this one, but it's going to be the whole entire back. Now, other body parts are a little more simple because I just wanted side laterals. I want cap delts. I want. Well, sometimes I did it for rear delts before also, because once again, coming into the shows, and it's why I did it. Other people. And at that level, they had huge rear delts. I didn't have one yet. Now, as soon as I started training on touch-up, it's a small muscle. It grew very fast. So I had huge rear delts also. But I look at other people and say, okay, and the way I did things, I look at the people that I'm going to compete against, the top guys, and I got to have what they have on my body. I got to, if I'm missing this, by the time I get to that show, I want that area to come up some, you know. And
So now, how long would you do this touch? Let's say back touch up. How long would that be? A month, 6 weeks? How long would you do that?
It could be months, because, you know, it could be until I got it to where I want it, and then I may take a break on it, you know. But
Okay.
you know, but you can never have a you know, a big enough back. So I've always did some type of back touch up. You know,
Tilt your phone a little bit, Don.
Say it again.
Tilt your phone. Right
Yeah.
there.
So yeah,
So,
you can never
so are
have
you
enough.
only doing one body part touch up at a time, or would you do multiple touch ups? Like, let's say arms and back and everything else?
Normally I would pick about 2, but then once I was able to train, because I was dancing, whatever, I quit dancing and became full-time training. And so what I would do is in the morning I would do my normal training, and I might do one touch up in the morning workout. But at night I would come back and pick 3 different touch up movements, you know, and those 3 I would do every single night. So it's still, once again, 4 sets. For example, if I go back at night, it's gonna be 4 sets of rear delts, 4 sets of lat pull downs, 4 sets of adductors, you know, so whatever the case may be, you know, and that'll be my night session, so which is quick and simple. And I designed it that way because at night everything is chaos. You know, I didn't want to be, you know, I never like to train full bodies. I mean, body parts at night because it's too crowded and stuff like that. In the morning, I can get my full workout in. At night, I don't need any particular machines to that degree, where I can just hop on anything and get it done quickly. You see. Yeah,
interesting.
But a lot of times when on the last, I don't know if you saw it. CT posted a quick, and this other page posted a quick excerpt from when I was talking with Dennis and them, and a lot of people got it confused and thinking that I train my entire body every single day. You know, my entire body every single day, and so they kind of took it way far. They just heard a quick excerpt from me saying about, you know, covering the entire body. But that's, you know, just once again, it's 4 to 5 sets, heavy. But I'm getting a crazy pump in that 4 to 5 sets, you see, because I'm going hard on those 4 to 5 sets. But it's not enough to damage the muscle like a full workout would do. And if you do know how the muscles work, we do have fibers at the top of the muscles, and then when you can barely break them, they still got to heal. But they're going to heal much faster than me digging deep inside the muscle, which is going to take about a week for that to heal. But teeny fibers that you break on the surface, they still going to heal. And every time they heal, they get more solid. They grow. You know, they callus over, so to speak, you know. And so, because, you know, that's the function of a muscle. You break it down, it's almost like a callus. You know, the healing process is a callus. So I want to break it just a little bit, so it can recuperate by tomorrow, so to speak. And, you know, granted, with eating, like I explained to the people up there, you have to be eating well and you have to be resting well. You can't do this for fun. You know, granted, you know, what people don't understand is, you know, and I don't know how much you know about me, Vinny, but I was one of the most dedicated bodybuilders out there when it comes
Oh,
to food, nutrition. I mean, I went
I
probably 6 years.
Don, I remember
Huh?
specifically, you and I were in a gym in Staten Island, and we had some downtime, and you were talking. I remember this like it was yesterday, and you were so intricate in like explaining. It was the first bodybuilder I actually saw in person and talked to that impressed me enough to pay more attention to my nutrition. So you inspired me a great deal back in the 90s, and I don't know if I ever told you that. I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah. You know, so I was that guy. Once I decided I was going to do it, I'm putting it because we all were great. Flex Wheeler, Chris, Sean, everybody's great. I had to figure out what can I do better. The strength, my mental strength was par none. And in hindsight, I get to see, even though I always knew Dorian was great, but you really get to see when Dorian talks now. Dorian didn't talk a lot back when he was competing, but now you get to see how dedicated he was. I didn't know that at the time, but that was me. Anything you hear Dorian saying, that was me. I was a monk, and so
Yep.
like I said, I went 7 years without a birthday cake, Halloween, Christmas dinner,
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, a piece of gum, not even popcorn at the movies. So if it wasn't my food, I wouldn't eat it. And once again, when I started coaching people, I didn't make them do that. That's something I wanted to take myself to that level. And if an athlete wanted to do that was up to them. But it is the extreme of dedication. But I'm not going to make every athlete that I coach do exactly what I did, because I could have got away with some other stuff. But my thing was about creating the mindset to be stronger than the average, So.
Oh, I get
And
it.
then when it came time to do prep, it wasn't that difficult. The only thing I would have to cut out of my diet would be eventually fruit and maybe a yogurt. That's the only extra things I had. Fruit at about 8 weeks out and yogurts at about 8 weeks out. And then that's all I had, extra,
Don, did you believe in rotating your carbs, or did you have a steady baseline of carbs?
Yeah,
How did you?
mine was steady. I didn't do a lot of high, low, and all this type of thing. What I did was I watched the scale really.
Oh boy.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Going well so far, but yeah.
Yeah,
So
I just remember always talking to Don, and
there he goes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And what was that last question, Benny?
Carb cycling, or believe it or what you
Yeah.
do for your carbs.
Yeah. So I would simply, I would monitor my body, of course, the way it looked. I would monitor the scale to a T. And what I would do is, because granted, I had a fast metabolism at this time. The most cardio I'm doing is maybe 30 to 45 minutes at the most, And so eventually at the end of the prep, I'm probably doing about 45 minutes of cardio, but I'm still eating probably, 50 grams of carbs per meal, so at least 300 grams of carbs all the way to the end of the prep. But at the same time, I used to eat between 600 and 900 grams of carbs. So it did drop, and I was starving just like anybody else. But a lot of people 300 would seem like a lot, but 300 was baby food for me at that time. But I was starving on that. But so I would eventually trim the carbs down. Monitor my body, but I had a system on it. It was so down packed. Every Tuesday, for example, literally every Tuesday, I would drop 2 pounds. And so I didn't have a lot of stressful preps, it was just every Tuesday I would drop weight. And some days I wouldn't look great. The scale will still move at its own pace, but I would have days where I'll be flat, but I just wouldn't stress over it because I know the next day it could pop around and I'll bounce back, so to speak. But I didn't do a lot of changing of anything at that point, so.
Yeah, I think that statement you just said goes back to what a lot of the mindset was back in the 90s. Because we didn't have the social media that everybody has today. So we had magazines and books that we can get from the stores and stuff, and not many people to bounce things off. We had to learn on our own.
Yeah.
And we had to find that comfortable spot where we knew, just like you, Tuesdays, for me, it's Thursdays.
Yeah.
Every Thursday, I'm a pound or two lighter.
Yeah.
And I understand and appreciate what you're saying. And I
Yeah.
don't stress just like you're saying, and I find a lot of people I talk to today, they stress and they change their program and not giving it enough time for it to see if it's going to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's one of the things I find today, where people have no patience, where you and I came up from an era where calm down, slow down, let's see how this works out, let's see what next week brings, and just stay on course. And I find what you're saying so great, because these are the exact same things I tell people that when I start coaching them.
Yeah. And a lot of times what I try to tell people also is that it is reality when you really am I getting too dark in this room? Let me know.
You're fine.
Okay. I try to tell them, when you really do everything perfect, and then granted, it's up to you if you're going to stay perfect, because it's tough. Prep is tough, and people want to cheat. But when you cheat, you have to eventually, what you got to do now, you got to make up some ground somewhere, and it's like baking a cake. How I used to see where you slam the oven and the cake falls, and so if you mold that cake and everything every day is perfect, and you chisel it down just like you're supposed to, you're not going to have a lot of mistakes. And then when you're on top of your training, your rest, and your food, and everything's on point, then you just got to slowly trim the weight. You have a target. And of course, in me, I have certain things that I need to see in my body. And if it's not coming, I pick up the pace some, or I cut some carbs out. I got to see striations coming in my chest. I got to see the psoriasis coming in, and the side glute. If those things aren't in, I know I'm not ready. And that's a mistake people make today is, and honestly, I don't even know why people don't have a lot of chest cuts today, compared to like when we were back in the day. Now, granted, even you're older, I get it, but I don't. So sometimes I don't think in this era people don't go far enough. And every now and then you get a guy who goes far enough and he wins. I would take even Sean Roden, for example. When he won, he put in some extra work to bring him compared to even though he's always come in decent condition sometimes. But when he went for that win, he suffered. You can tell he suffered because he was gutted, And so that's what people they really got to start doing, is if you don't have, and you can't just rely on that. I got cut glutes. I don't know. Everybody got chasing the cut glutes, but you don't have cuts in your chest, or you don't have a six pack, So you got to. So I had to have a six pack. We all had to have a six pack, Vinny. You couldn't even get on stage if you didn't have a six pack, And nowadays, people rely on one. People don't train the abs enough. I don't think. They just don't train them at all. And then, and two, I think we do live in an era where I think people rely more on the supplements to harden them up rather than to the diet to beat them down, so to speak.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Vinny and I've talked about it, that we call it the skeleton death face is no longer there. Like, you knew someone was suffering. That Dexter Jackson, I mean, you still see it. Vinny's 2 weeks post, and Vinny's still kind of lean in the face.
Yeah.
Those are gone.
And so he's been doing it long enough where he knows if I don't see this and this, I know I'm not ready. I know I got to dig. And then honestly, Vin, if you're 50-some years old, how old are you? 40-something, 50?
56.
Exactly. And I'll be honest, to bring that kind of condition at 56, I'm tripping myself.
Yeah,
but
it's all up here, Don.
Yeah, and it goes back from the school of hard knocks, so to speak, that what you gather from when you were younger, And I think no other way, so to speak, but suffering. We had to suffer, And that's why when you look at the nationals, I mean, it was tough for you to get your card for so many years, but you were a hell of a bodybuilder. You know what I'm saying? You won the USA's, right?
Yeah, I won the USA. We've said this on the show, and back in '93, I won my class and didn't get a pro card.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking that today. It's a lot, not about you, but in general, it's a lot of bodybuilders back in our day that wish they were in this era, because honestly, it's a lot easier for them to get a card nowadays.
Oh, and Don, I'm sure that in your gym back in the '90s, you could break balls with other competitors.
Yeah.
And today, I joke with the guys in the gym, and I try to say to them, dude, your work ethic versus my work ethic. If I never got my pro card and I was able to stand on stage at a local show, I'd kick your ass.
Yeah.
They're like, no. I'm like, yeah. But anyway, so what are you doing today? You getting people ready for shows and
after I stopped competing, of course, even that's how I met my wife, is I started coaching people I'm sorry about the camera.
Okay.
I started coaching people around, by the time I was done myself, I started slowly coaching people. And my wife was one of the people that I coached along with a bunch of people from our gym. And so, and then from that point, I just kept coaching. And then once we got married, we became a coaching team. So we coached people, all over. I coached some of the top people, in the country, but then once we, and then we ventured into this meal prep business. So, it takes a lot of time and effort to try to grow this business. So we don't do much coaching anymore,
So do you have a facility where you cook the food? Like, is that how it works?
Oh, yeah, we have a commercial kitchen. We have about 3 different buildings. One is just simply the commercial kitchen. And then the other is customer service and shipping and things like that. So, and then this other building we're turning into a bakery.
And if people are interested in getting your meals, do you deliver around the country?
Yeah, around the country, all 50 states, so we ship nationwide.
How did they get in touch with you?
longlifemealprep.com. You can go on Instagram, of course, Long Life Meal Prep. longlifemealprep.com.
And do you do custom meals, like if somebody's training for a contest?
Exactly. We customize. In fact, I have a couple here just to show. So this is, for example, it comes in a box like in a tray like this. And for example, I just bought some of the pounds of salmon, for example, and it comes just like this in a sealed container, so it stays fresh. So you have to peel this film back when you're ready to eat it, but it'll last in this tray for like 2 weeks without eating. And when you eat it on the last day 1, so to speak, And then so this is just a custom stuff where people, this is bulk, I would say, but we do custom also. If someone wants us to custom their diet, we do that also.
What is that? Red potatoes?
This is red potatoes, yeah. So
nice.
And all the macros right here. Yeah.
Cool.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Don, one of the things that Vinny and I always talk about in today's generation, and not to be the old grizzled veterans here, bad mouthing, but posing is a thing of the past. And I know you were a good poser yourself. Was there an inspiration that you followed? The Bob Paris's, the Lee Labradas, anybody that you kind of mirrored off of?
I would say, definitely, of course, I love Lee Labrada. I love Bob Paris. Of course, I love Lee Haney. But then, they were kind of coming out as I was coming in. Lee Haney, 91, that was my first year competing. But I drew a lot of inspiration from Lee Haney's posing and, of course, Labrada. But then it was the Flex Wheelers, the Sean Rays and stuff like that of my time as I was coming in. I hadn't even done a national show. I'm seeing these guys. And then so that style. But like I said, I was a performer anyway. So I just kind of saw what they were doing. And then I kind of threw my own stuff to it along with it, so.
I remember you posing sexy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using something like, Keith Washington kind of music.
Yeah. Prince and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was probably one of the only white guys posing like you guys.
Yeah. You were though. Yeah. But
and I was able to pull it off.
Had that physique where it was calling for showing it that way. You could probably put on a rock song also, but you had a nice, you were classy as it gets, at that time, so.
Well, the way I looked at it, Don, was, and this is not talking about any race or anything, but and I can say it because I'm a white guy. I just felt like all the white guys posed to this rock music and they would go back and forth the stage, do this and do most musculars. I'm like, that's not a posing routine. Yeah. And I love Lee Labrada and I love Sean Ray.
Yeah.
I took a little bit from Lee Haney, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But more from the guys like Francis Benfato, Muhammad Makawe, Labrada, definitely Flex Wheeler.
Yeah.
And I came up with my own version because I had a little Gaspari thrown in there too, because I was able to hit those shots hard.
Yeah.
So I don't think the guys today appreciate. No, there are people out there who do great posing routines. I don't want to bet that there are.
Not enough. Like I said, it was just back in our day. It was rare that you didn't. It was you had a few guys that would do, like you were saying, to just get out there, blah blah blah. Most people, especially if you go back to the Haney days, you had to have a routine back then. And coming into the 90s, and that's why you saw even Dorian is a white guy, but Dorian had great routines. He made it for his body, and he had great. And same thing with Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler blended, to where he became, honestly, he had great routines. He wasn't going to do exactly what Flex Wheeler did, but he was very entertaining and posing for his body. I thought he did, and he had to, though. He knew he was going against posers, like Flex and Chris and all these guys. So he had to have something good to come out with, and I think
do you remember Papoose?
Yeah. He was my dance partner, actually, Yeah.
Okay, and he had great posing routines.
But we trained, because we had a dance team, and him and another guy, we were like a trio, so to speak, in the DC area. But he of course he turned pro the same year I turned pro, though.
Mm-hmm.
He was a light, or the bantamweight, something like that. Might have been lightweight. I can't remember if they even had bantam back then.
Do you still follow? Do you still follow the sport today, Don?
Oh yeah, I follow it heavily. Yeah. So
Who do you like in today's scenario?
I like I like a lot of people. I think a lot of people put in work. I think of course I like I like hot. I mean, the top guys are doing what they're supposed to do. The Samsons and stuff like that. I think Samson literally could be great. Especially once he continues to nail it. Andrew can be great. I think even Hunter can be great if he just continues to nail it like he did and get even better. He has all the tools. And I like Nick, Nick, for what he does. He's not going to have the prettiest body, but he's put in that work, and kind of like he's doing what he has to do to win. I would say that. So I appreciate his work ethic. But so it's the top guys, I think, are doing give or take what they should. I think it should be. I would like to see more depth. Go further than those guys. Some of these smaller shows should still have some quality people, and I just don't. I think it's slipping a little bit at the level. The Olympia is great. The Arnold's top 4 or 5 are great. After that, it's kind of somewhat mediocre to me.
Any physiques did you see close to yourself back in the day, like Andrew Jack, maybe, or?
I would say he falls along the '90s type of physique, not necessarily my physique, but I would say he would definitely be put in that class of the '90s type of body.
Yeah.
I can see Samson in that way also. I mean, you remember Anthony Best?
Yeah. Tony Best.
He reminds you of Samson. I mean, he was way smaller, of course, but he had that type of body like a Samson, if you remember correctly. Same.
Yeah, he trained in the same gym that I trained in.
Yeah, exactly. So that's fine because he was kind of same complexion, bald head, and he was built something like that. He never made it high at the level, but he had that type of shape, I would say, or like a Nimrod King or something like that. But yeah, I think Samson would be a great '90s bodybuilder, and Andrew, and then and Hardy's a little different. He's a beast, but he's a little different than what the '90s were, I would say, But he brings that condition. That's good.
Yeah. So are you surprised that the top guys are now just a lot smaller? Smaller in stature and not weight. That is, like Hardy and Derek, obviously.
I think I think that's the door. Yeah, and of course I like Derek also. Like I mentioned, I like Derek's work ethic, and of course the way he's progressed, thus far. But I think the door just gets left open, and the pool is not that deep. I mean, I'll be honest. It's, when you look at the nationals, tell me what national champion in the past 15, 20 years that would beat Flex Wheeler.
Yeah.
Or Chris Cormier, or let's say 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, who was even close to that level, coming out of the national. So the crop is not great coming out, and so we don't have a lot of, crop to choose from. And I think what's happening is once you split up these divisions and people stopping at men's physique and people stopping at classic, then that's what's going to ruin. I mean, to me, it's going to take away from the body, because we all would have been. I would have been men's physique at some point if I just stayed there. You see, and if I wanted to move another notch, I could have just stayed at classic.
Absolutely,
it was our type of bodies, men's physique, with the genetics of being ripped like that excel to be great bodybuilders. And now they're just staying at men's physique. The best shapes and the best bodies are in men's physique. Then they still have to, of course, pick up their legs, a lot of them. But I did too. I didn't have legs to start off with. But and so what you have after that is the football players are molding themselves into bodybuilders, so to speak. And I'll use that kind of, but that's what you have. You have these guys that weren't genetically made for bodybuilding, but they mold themselves down to bodybuilding. And so, but they can do that. They can get away with that because it's not, you don't have all of these shapes like you used to,
Yep.
So.
So Don, as we wind down here today, are you still in the gym frequently, or more focused on the business, or kind of what's your training like nowadays?
Yeah, the gym is always a part. I have to start, because I'm a professional bodybuilder, so I know the importance of that having that exercise as a part of my day. Now I don't train like I used to. Once I stopped coaching, because I used to coach, my training partner who was a pro, I helped him turn pro. But because when I was living in Jacksonville with him, I would train hard. Armando Amon is his name. But anyway, I would train hard with him. This was only a few years ago, though. I used to train hard, and I stayed a little bit bigger because of it. But I didn't necessarily want to be bigger, but I just wanted to push him and train hard. So once I kind of stopped coaching and train on my own, I literally use all machines at this point. I don't do any squats. I just do a lot of leg extensions, body weight squats, and lunges. And it's just training to be fit and get in and get out. Still quick and simple. And then I do some cardio, but I'm not trying to put on weight or get bigger, but I want to keep a little shape is what I want to do, and I still, believe it or not, I still do touch-ups, because if I don't have anything else, if I have on a shirt and I can show some round delts and some nice arms, then I touch up those areas, and then people will be fooled, but they don't have to see the rest. As long as they see the arms and shoulders, they don't have to see the six-pack and nothing like that,
I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad we got you on tonight. We got to get you back on in the future because we got so much more to talk about.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Don, it was definitely a pleasure. And once again, the name of the business, please.
The business is Long Life Meal Prep. We ship nationwide. We've prepped for some of the top athletes in the country. Sean, we prepped for Sean. We prepped for Dexter Jackson, Kevin Larone, with Chris Cormier now. So we've Natalia, you name it. We prepped Ariel Kadar. We prepped for some of the top athletes in the country right now. And then we're available to help people with their preps. And of course, we know nutrition, so they don't have to. They're not going to people that are green at this. This is what we do, meal prep. That's why we got into the business. And of course, our major base is simply making food. We make entrees each week, a different type of entree so people can have good macros, but tasty food like a pizza bowl or lasagna bowl. But it's all macro down to still help them stay on track.
Nice, sounds good.
Yeah,
excellent. Cool. And what's the Instagram, Don, in case people want to follow you?
Yeah, so that's going to be Long Life Meal Prep. Simple as that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And Vinny, it's great having you back after Romania. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we have Jimmy Mentis and Porter Cottrell joining the show. Don, again, thank you so much and continued success.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great night, okay?
Thank you, Don.
All right,
take care.